the channel. I'm back to break down this Thursday Night Football NFL Week 5 Showdown slate on Draftkings and Fanduel. Excited to get into this one. We have two powerhouse teams in the Seattle Seahawks and the LA Rams. This one should be a fun one to watch. And as always, looking to give you guys the top plays to get you in the green, get you in the money, and continue to build your bankroll. That's what this channel is all about. If you do enjoy the content at any point in this video, if you could please take a moment to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future content that I upload. That would be greatly appreciated. Goes a very long way in supporting me, helping me out, and I'll be here all NFL DFS season long breaking down these NFL slates to help you guys become better NFL DFS players. And then if you are getting very serious about NFL DFS, I do offer an NFL DFS premium package that I would highly recommend. If you're playing NFL DFS every weekend, I think you're going to get your return on investment very quickly. Check that out, link below in the description. You get access to all the same tools that I use when building my own NFL DFS lineups, top stacks tool, projected ownership, projections overall, matchup charts. The list goes on and on. When you go ahead and click that link, it'll tell you all about the package at a friendly price. So, with all that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking down this Thursday Night Football Showdown slate. So as always, we'll go ahead and start with DraftKings first, figure out some of our top captain plays, figure out some of the guys that are going to make the most sense on this slate. One thing to note right off the bat is that Chris Carson is listed as questionable on the Seattle Seahawks side. He was listed as a non-participant on Tuesday due to a neck injury all of a sudden. So if he's going to be out, it's going to be most likely Alex Collins with a mix of Travis Homer and DJ Dallas, which could obviously impact our exposures quite a bit, and it could definitely impact Seattle's game plan in this one. So that's definitely something to keep note of. This game does have a 54.5 over under, a 28.5 implied total for the Rams. Starting with the Rams, I do think that Cooper Kupp is going to be one of the best plays on the slate. This Seattle secondary is not good. Cooper Kupp's volume this season has been absolutely ridiculous. The guy is priced up, but for good reason. His target share, his connection with Matthew Stafford, he has seen double-digit targets in every single game, 10, 11, 12, 13 targets. Last week was the first time he didn't reach in the end zone, and I expect that to change in a big way in this one. He's got a great matchup advantage over the secondary, one of the best advantages you could possibly have, really. Looking at the secondary with guys like DJ Reed, Trey Flowers, Ugo Amadi, it's really not going to be able to slow him down, I don't think, whatsoever. And then when you're looking at the overall target share for him on my key stats tool here, as far as his total amount of share in this offense, he has a 34.33% target share overall in this offense. That means over a third of the team's total passing plays are going in the direction of Cooper Kupp. That's a big deal. And like I said, when you have a secondary that's not expected to slow him down and the matchup advantage that he has over the secondary, I'm going to really like Cooper Kupp in this spot. And as I said, he's priced up, but for good reason. We know over the historical context of these showdown slates, if you don't know, usually it's not the QB in that captain spot that wins you. You need the guy that scores 1 or 2 touchdowns and he has a big game. And I think Cooper Kupp, there's a strong chance that he could be that guy in this one. The target share, I think, will continue to be there for him. And I do really like him in this one. Now, obviously, you can pair him up with his QB in Matthew Stafford. As far as my projections overall and what I have expected to grade out, Matthew Stafford is my top projected guy on this showdown slate. Overall, from a raw projection aspect, I expect him to get plenty of volume. We know the Rams love to throw the ball. And Matthew Stafford comes in at 17-1. He has seen 30, 38, and 41 pass attempts over the last 3 games. I expect that to keep up. And not only that, this Rams team definitely has an advantage as far as from an O-line aspect. He should have plenty of time to throw. As far as breaking that down, they have a 22% pass block advantage over this Seattle Seahawks defensive front. So I think that's also going to obviously impact, as it always does, whether he's going to have time to throw. He should have plenty of time to throw downfield, and it's really going to be the main guys in this offense. We talked about Cooper Kupp. We have seen Robert Woods really struggle, and this could be the game where he finally breaks out. People are getting very frustrated with him. His target share really hasn't been up. If there's ever a secondary, like I said, this game environment and everything, as far as for him to break out, this could be it. Robert Woods only seeing an 18.66% target share overall in this offense, though, after we just discussed the guy in Cooper Kupp seeing 34.33% of his team's targets. That's where things become a little bit concerning to me. Maybe this is the game, though, where Stafford finally does target Robert Woods a bunch. Robert Woods, he just keeps going to him, feeding him and feeding him and feeding him. And he's the one that has the big game. And if that's the case, obviously you could have some big leverage off the Cooper Kupp plays. I definitely do like both of these guys. You know, it's very clear where the ball's going in this Rams offense. It's those two guys really overall as far as the top targets. You have Van Jefferson as well, Tyler Higbee. But they don't have nearly as much of a target share as Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. Pulling up those guys, they're more of the deep flyers in tournaments here. You have Deshaun Jackson as well at 6,600. He's seen a few targets in this game, but in a few games. But I mean, let's be honest. Deshaun Jackson not really seeing much volume at all. He's really just a deep ball threat occasionally. It's really going to be Tyler Higbee and Van Jefferson that I'm looking at their overall target share on the offense. Tyler Higbee currently coming in with a 13.43% target share. And as far as Van Jefferson, he has a 13.43% target share as well. So they're both seeing around the same targets. Looking at my wide receiver key stats tool here, as I always like to do to tell you guys as far as the downfield targets and some of these guys' air yards, as far as the league leaders in air yards per game, if there's anyone in this game that can really be a deep threat, the first guy that's really going to pop in my model here would be DK Metcalf on the Seattle Seahawks side. As far as on the Rams side, not really a lot of guys that are leading the league in, as far as air yards down the field here. It is going to be Cooper Kupp leading with 97 air yards per game, obviously with a 34.3% target share. He's on the field for 93.1% of his team snaps as well. So a guy in Cooper Kupp that we already discussed. As far as anyone else on this offense, in looking at the overall volume, I mean, Cooper Kupp's out there for 92.6% of snaps. Robert Woods out there for 90.2% of snaps. Van Jefferson's out there for 76.2%. Tyler Higbee's out there for 87.7% of snaps. So it's relatively predictive where the ball is going in this Rams offense. It's not a bad thing. That's what I'd be looking to for sure. And then as far as the run game's concerned, we do have Darrell Henderson Jr. healthy again. As far as last week, he had 14 attempts, 6 targets. The volume is going to be back up. And as I said, I do think that this Rams offensive line does have a big advantage here. Looking at their advantage as far as the offensive line from a run block advantage, they do have a 28% run block advantage over this Seattle Seahawks defensive front. And I think the volume should be there for Darrell Henderson. Looking at some of his key stats on the season so far, as far as his rush share in this overall offense when he's been healthy. You know, he's played 3 games. He did have to sit one out. Now he's back. 43.43% of the team's rushes are headed his way. And he does have a 8.96 target share percentage as well in this offense. So out there for 50 snaps per game, getting plenty of volume. If you want to go the route of fading the wide receivers, going to Darrell Henderson Jr., I do think that he's obviously a very valid play. And, you know, it's really going to be Darrell Henderson Jr. and Cooper Kupp that are the guys that I would say are my favorite, maybe more so of obvious calls here. And then as far as from a matchup aspect, how these teams are grading out, as far as QBs, the Rams, the Seahawks have been the 8th best team to target in terms of QBs. Running backs, the Seahawks have been the 2nd best team to target in terms of running backs. They've been giving up a bunch on the ground. So keep that in mind when it comes to Darrell Henderson Jr. I mean, the Rams might decide to just feed him. And to be honest with you, the more you'll see when we transition over to the Seattle Seahawks side of this game, the more I look at this game, I like the Rams a lot, especially if Chris Carson's hurt. I mean, they seem to have an advantage in a lot of aspects here, maybe from a sports betting aspect if you are a sports bettor. I know the Rams are on the road, but they just seem to have a lot of advantages here. The wide receiver matchup chart, the Seahawks have been the 10th best team to target, and then as far as tight ends, the Seahawks have been the 14th best team to target. So it's not like they really have any strengths overall. We're really looking at the overall target share of this Rams offense, and that was a pretty good review of it. That's, I feel pretty solid about what we just went over there. And then transitioning over to the Seattle Seahawks side of the ball, as far as my favorite options, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, both obvious candidates to be out in the field for a bunch of snaps. They're both out there for a ton of snaps, 90% overall approximately for both guys. We know the target share is going to be there if you're targeting the pass game. I would kind of anticipate that the Seahawks are going to have to play from behind this one. Like I said, the more I review this and the more I see these overall stats, it's not looking too pretty. As far as their run game and everything, Chris Carson has accounted for 59.34% of his team's overall runs. He has a 5.88 target share. He's a workload running back. Problem is, we don't even know if he's going to be healthy. And second of all, they really don't match up very well with this offensive front. As far as the matchup, they have a 0% run block advantage. And then as far as from a pass block advantage, it's a negative 45% advantage. So I'd expect there to be a lot of pressure on Russell Wilson in this one. I think the Rams are going to be able to get to him. I think he's going to be forced to throw a lot, though, because I think that they probably are going to have to come from behind in this game. And like I said, the good news is we know exactly where the ball is going. Pulling up some of my key snap data tools here as far as the overall target share in this offense. We know DK Metcalf has a 32.35% overall target share in this offense. We did see Tyler Lockett get a little bit hobbled, so I think that those numbers might be a little bit skewed as far as the overall volume. I do think that Tyler Lockett's going to account for quite a few targets as well, but DK Metcalf's the main guy here. I mean, once again, about a third of his team's overall targets are headed his way. We know he goes on the field early and often. Like I said, as far as air yards per game, DK Metcalf is up there in league leaders for sure, being targeted down the field early and often. As far as his overall air yards per game for Metcalf, he's seeing approximately 101 air yards per game, 20.2 air yards per reception, and 12.24 average target distance down the field as far as yardage. I mean, the guy's a downfield burner. We know that. Like I said, they're going to be playing from behind. I think it makes a lot of sense to be going to a Tyler Lockett as well in this particular matchup. But the problem is, they're both going to have pretty difficult matchups here. Looking at this Rams secondary, they have a very talented secondary. Jalen Ramsey, David Long Jr., Darius Williams, they're great coverage grade cornerbacks. It's not really going to be easy to go down the field, I don't think, oftentimes here. And for that reason, I mean, you got a guy like DK Metcalf who's just an absolute physical beast as far as his height, his stature, and all that stuff. So you make an argument that maybe DK is the way to go in this one over Tyler Lockett due to that. But Tyler Lockett also a great slot weapon that can definitely get the job done over the middle or across the field. And as far as a PPR format on Draftkings specifically, it makes a lot of sense. We've also seen Freddie Swain at 6'9" become a little bit part of this offense as well. His target share is starting to pick up. Looking at that as far as my snap count data sheet, looking at Mr. Freddie Swain, he does have an 11.76 target share, trailing obviously DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett on the Seattle side, but more than Gerald Everett, who's now hurt, and now we're going to see Will Dissly start to pick up quite a bit of targets as well. So he's another guy that we could be looking to on this Seattle side. Now he's going to be the tight end one. We have seen Will Dissly and Russell Wilson have some chemistry in the past. And then as far as the overall matchups here on this side of the ball, like I said, not looking too great, but I will say the Rams haven't been that great. They're 15th best team target in terms of QBs. As far as running backs, they've been the 11th best team to target. Wide receivers, they've been the 14th best team to target. And tight ends, they've been the 12th best team to target. So it's not like the Rams, as far as from a statistical standpoint so far in the season, have been that really deadly defense that we're used to seeing and what these numbers are stating. But I just think, looking at overall these numbers, the Rams definitely have an advantage. I think that the Seahawks will be forced to throw, especially if we see Mr. Chris Carson miss this game. Keep an eye on that injury status, because I think that's going to be the game script. I think you're going to see these Rams get out in front early, have to run the ball a lot. So once again, that's going to be kind of an increase to Darrell Henderson Jr.'s interest here. Maybe we have a lot of interest in him. Get up in the game. They're going to keep running the ball, feeding him. He could have a huge score. And I do like Cooper Kupp to get some volume early on, get some downfield targets. I do like him as a play quite a bit here. So let's go ahead and build you guys some, let's walk through some of the stuff we talked about, build out some lineups here. And the first thing we'll do is go over on DraftKings. So we talked about liking Cooper Kupp. We talked about liking Darrell Henderson Jr. getting up in this game. We're going to go ahead and captain Darrell Henderson Jr., say that the Rams get up big in this game. And he's the big part of doing it. Let's say he scores 2 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp gets a lot of the volume down the field. He gets lots of receptions. He has a big score. Maybe stack him up with Stafford if we can. Problem is, that's only going to leave you with about like 4,000 something per player. So as far as run back options on the Seattle side, I think we really want to prioritize getting a DK Metcalf in there. Like I said, he's the guy that's going to be targeted down the field a lot early and often, and you're going to need him as far as when they come back in this game. Now, this is where things get interesting. If Chris Carson misses this game, we're going to have lots of value at the running back position. Like, we could go ahead and throw in a Homer and maybe a DJ Dallas as well, and make that work possibly. Now, I think that's getting a little too cute overall when it's probably realistically going to be Alex Collins that's getting a bulk of the load. So we probably want to go with him. If that's the case, I mean, Alex Collins at 3-2 obviously becomes a tremendous value play as well. That's going to open up a lot of stuff for us. We can maybe even just go to a lineup like this where we have Henderson, Cooper Kupp, Stafford. We stack Stafford up with Kupp, then run it back with Metcalf, Collins. Maybe in the pass game they're targeting him. But you could also make a case that if we're captaining DJ Henderson Jr., it probably makes sense to go to a Russell Wilson if we can. Problem is, in this build, we can't. We have to go to the cheaper Stafford. That's going to leave us with 200 per position. We did see Ryan Izzo sign with the Seattle Seahawks practice squad, so keep an eye on that one. If he's going to be active in this one, he actually grades out my model as a pretty good value play right now, to be honest with you. Could be one of the top value plays on the slate if we're seeing him out there for some snaps. And I would have some interest in him for sure. So that's something to keep an eye on. But you have a bunch of guys here in the 200 range that you could just take shots on. As far as who my favorites would be, we talked about Izzo possibly being a guy. Penny Hart on the Seahawks could be a guy that's possibly out there, receives a reception. I'm not getting too excited about any of these guys. Obviously, there's a reason they're only 200. But in order to make this lineup work, you're going to have to throw in someone that's 200. And as far as my top options that I'd be looking to, you got Ryan Izzo, Jacob Harris, possibly Penny Hart, Jake Funk. But, you know, it's not like this is going to be an ideal spot to be targeting the 200 guy. But let's just go ahead and throw a Jake Funk in there. Let's say Jake Funk gets a carry or two, and sure, you know, that's a look at a possible build there. Maybe more realistic one without that 200 player would be going to a Henderson in the captain spot. Maybe we fade Cooper Kupp and we think that Robert Woods has that big game finally. And then we run it back with Russell Wilson in the DK Metcalf combination. That's going to leave us with 3-9. We could throw in a Will Dissly as well for them to have to come back. And then maybe a kicker on the Seattle side, like a Jason Myers or something. I mean, you're missing quite a few correlation there on the Rams side. You have to really hope that Darrell Henderson Jr. pretty much dominates the usage there, which that's what this build is implying, and that's what you need to be doing when you're building your lineups, having a game script in your head. As far as Fanduel, it's a much different format. You have the MVP 1.5 times point slot, and then for any flex spots. So that's what you're looking to there. And the guys that I'd be looking to the MVP slot would be most likely Cooper Kupp or Darrell Henderson Jr., to be honest, based upon the game script and how I expect it to go. We're going to continue just building Darrell Henderson Jr. lineups here. We think the Rams are going to get up. Put in a Russell Wilson, put in a Cooper Kupp if we can. That's going to leave us with 8,700 position DK Metcalf. That leaves us with 5K. So we could make that work with maybe a Ryan Izzo if he's activated here. As far as anyone else that's 5K that's catching my eye over here, it's not really looking too pretty. But once again, we might have some value in here with Chris Carson being out. If that's the case, then Alex Collins is only 7,500. We have Freddie Swain. Will Dissly's a cheap option here if you want to pay up at the captain spot with like a QB possibly. Or, I mean, the captain spot doesn't matter if you put in there. Let's say we want Cooper Kupp and we want both QBs. That's a build maybe you could possibly look into as well over here on FanDuel. And FanDuel does have a lot more equity built into playing the QB because you overall just need the top scoring guys. The salary is not nearly as strict over here. You need the best scoring guy in the MVP slot and then the 4 any flex plays. So, you know, that's a pretty simple build. And that is my overall breakdown for this Thursday Night Football Week 5 Showdown slate. Quick reminder that if you did enjoy the content, if you could please take a moment to leave a like on this video. It really does greatly help me. Appreciate all the support, guys. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, check out my premium package and the rest of the KJK links linked below in the description. You can also become a KJK DFS fan club member on the channel. I've been asked multiple times how people can show their support for my content if they enjoy it. You can join now, become a prioritized guy in the comments. You get the KJK DFS badge next to your name as well. And yeah, that's just another option to show you support. I wish you guys the best of luck on the Showdown slate, and we will see you in the next one.